I am Fleetus Poston. I come from North Carolina. I am currently the Security Operations Manager at CrashPlan. We're a backup and recovery solution. I have been in the industry for just over 15 years in numerous roles from IT to SecOps. I currently, as I said, I'm the Security Operations Manager for CrashPlan. That covers our identity and access management, our TVM, our application security, and then our traditional security operations center activities for engineering and analyst. Quick disclaimer for the duration of this represents me only. As you can see at the bottom, I am known to throw in a dad joke from time to time to lighten the mood. As we are in an awareness summit, we have to be able to use humor in a field, as well as instill confidence in the people we are talking to. So let's get started. Here's a quick agenda of what we're going to cover today. So we've been hearing throughout the summit already the importance of having a quality security awareness program. We're going to understand what is security operations and how it can enable a quality user awareness program, the critical component that it offers, the benefits of integrating with your security operations team, and then practical ways of implementing the disciplines that fall under security operations, and then we'll end it with a Q&A session. So let's get started. As you've heard throughout our talks today, and as you probably see every morning when you wake up and you turn on your computer or check your phone, there's always something new in the news. That could be from a breach to a data leak, could just be a piece of software that's been compromised, such as your password vaults. It could be indictments. We've seen the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, now putting mandates out. You could see new regulations come out. So it's imperative that anyone inside of your organization, not just your security team, is aware of just what security is today. For those who've been in the industry for more than a few years, security have always had these issues, but it wasn't until mainstream news outlets picked up the amount of security incidents and security vulnerabilities that we now talk about it on a day in and day out basis. So you, as I alluded to already, you can't turn on your phone, check social media, turn on the news without hearing about a breach, a security vulnerability, or something else that's impacting you at home and in the work. And as we dive through this presentation, we're going to talk about how security is a culture, how it's a human-centric mindset. I'm going to bring that throughout this presentation to help drive home what we read in the news, what we see on our phones, and what we talk about at the water cooler, either when we're in the office or what we have in the Discord channels, Slack channels, or team conversations, how they apply to your employees so that they can ultimately understand that they, your employee, your peers, can help build a strong security culture within your organization. So we've talked about these, and I'll just highlight them again. One of your biggest challenges for your organization is getting employees to take it seriously. Many security awareness managers I talk to and interact with wear multiple hats. They wear a lot of different activities. They're the comms person. They're building out programs. They're answering phone calls. They're answering Slack messages. They're engaged in a lot of different opportunities and wearing multiple hats. And it's hard for those security awareness managers to understand and to portray the importance of their security awareness program. So as we go throughout this talk, I'm going to elevate how me and other security operations teams can help empower security awareness programs to break through that nuance that employees see when they engage with security, that they can understand the vulnerabilities and the security risk and threats that their organization is facing day in and day out, as well as what they are facing every time they open their front door, unlock their phone, get in their car, or go to any establishment, the amount of vulnerabilities and threats that they're picking up. Additionally, it's very hard to keep your content up to date. If you're relying on an LMS, a learning management system, or you're relying on your security awareness platforms, your providers who are doing your phishing simulations to give you up-to-date content, it may not be relevant for your organization. It may be broad, it may be high level, and it may not be targeted enough that your employees feel like it hits close enough to home. No matter what's happening in the world, people always say it cannot happen to me, or it won't happen to me, or it won't happen to us. We have to help the organizations, the line of businesses understand that threats are continuously evolving, but we have to be ready to take charge and understand and adapt to how we do business, how we work remotely, and how we work in an office to make sure that we can accommodate all the new threats, all the new vulnerabilities that we are facing both as individuals and as an organization. So I love this quote, and I found that it's very helpful to open with it. Awareness is good, but without skills and ability tied to that awareness, all you have is anxiety. So many of you probably already, while you're listening to this presentation, are thinking about, Cletus, you've mentioned that I need to watch the news. I need to read everything. I need to be abreast of every security thing that's going on. And that just gives me anxiety. That just gives me worry. How do I take that and apply it to my employees, to my peers, to my colleagues? How did I help them understand that what they do day in and day out adds value? That there's intrinsic opportunities for them as employees, as peers, as colleagues, as friends, to break through the anxiety of what is security? What am I aware of? I have a good friend of mine, security awareness. What am I making you aware of? So this is where we'll go through this presentation. I'm going to make you aware of all the different types of threats and vulnerabilities that your security operations teams are dealing with on day in and day out, and how they can be fed back in to your finance teams, to your marketing teams, to IT, and to security proper. Because we all are employees of our organizations. We all have a right and a need to be valued, and to be able to say something when we see something, to be able to stop and assess and not have anxiety, but have a plan in place to know exactly who to go to for information, how to get information, how to share information, and ultimately how to disseminate information that is localized, that is timely, and that is applicable to the organization and the employees that you have in your organizations for wherever they live. If they're in the US, if they're in the EU, in Canada, APAC, we'll understand how, as we go through this presentation, we can take each of those and make it where they have the ability to be calm, collected, and know what data they're ingesting. So our first joke of the day is, we'll call it, communication is key. So what should you do if you get locked out of your house? Talk to the lock, because communication is key. Everything I've shared so far has been based off of communication, effective communication, timely communication, and in a medium that's appropriate. Each of us work in organizations that are multi-generational. You're going to have employees who want you to walk over to their desk or meet them in the break room and share information with them while they're filling up their coffee or heating up their lunch. You're going to have other colleagues who want you to call them on the phone, talk with them verbally, audibly. They want to hear your voice. You're going to have other colleagues who are fine with a Slack message, a Teams message. They like that in the passive communication. Then you're going to have others who need you to email them, call them, and send them an IM, because that's how they've operated. Depending on the generations you're working with, you're going to have to learn how to make communication your key. We talk about keys often in security. We have cryptography, we have asymmetric and symmetric keys, and they apply to having conversations. Do you have a private and public key? What type of key exchanger you use? That can be applied and should be applied to every integration, every conversation and interaction you have with your colleagues, your management, your vendors, and anyone else who's partnering with you to make sure that your organization is profitable, has the ability to do business that is safe and secure. Because a motto that a lot of us think of is, we make it work, but we need to make it work securely. So securing our communications, being timely with our communications, and applying those communications in a way that our users understand what we're saying and how we're saying it. As we go through the rest of this presentation, I'm going to unpack this and how this comes out of your threat intel teams, your IR teams, your SOC teams, your security awareness teams. Each of us have a position in the organization, the ability to share information and produce information that should be and can be communicated effectively. So first off, let's make security an ideology. What do you mean by that? We need to make sure we have buy-in from the top down. We need to make sure that philosophy is in the sense that we, as employees of the organization, understand what security means to the business. Many of you here today probably work in IT or security, or have been in conversations with them. We are a business unit that doesn't usually generate revenue. So it's sometimes hard for us to ask for money or to want to spend money on certain things, because The top-down philosophy is to make revenue, to get your profit out in a timely manner, to get your application to market sooner. We have to present security with a human mindset. We have to make it as part of human issues, because safety is the number one thing in security. I'll say that again. Human safety is the number one aspect to security and cybersecurity. We cannot endanger human life to protect an organization. So we can't shut down a data center and lock them in it just to suppress the fire. We have to let the door open and let the employee out. We also have to remember we hired intelligent individuals. We have intellect as humans. We are knowledgeable, but we have emotions. We can be swayed by those emotions. Organizations need technical and administrative controls, but we also need to educate, trust, and rely on the human elements of cybersecurity to succeed. The biggest thing is to help your peers. You see me say peers here. I didn't use end users. Understand their intrinsic value to the company and how you as security see them. Say, I see you as a human. I see you as a peer. You're a value add to this organization. I want to make sure that when I do this, I do it in a manner that allows you to do your job. I be in this, substitute that for security. Security wants to make sure that what you do, you can do in a secure manner and still get your job done without massive impediments. We need to train you. If you see something, say something. We need to make it clear and culturally acceptable to stop and assess, to think before you click and think before you do. Many organizations that I've worked with, talked to, been involved in, there's a fear factor of them being productive. So they just start clicking. They click on every prompt, they open every email, they download every attachment, they surf to every website because they don't have time in their mindset to stop and to assess the situation. These actions, if they're done correctly, can save an organization X amount of dollars, X amount of time, potentially make your company much more profitable, which could put a bonus in your pocket. And ultimately, if you've got a strong security culture, there may be some leniency that comes out. Fleetus, you just said that security can be lenient. Yes, security has the ability to be lenient when you properly educate the human OS, as we'll talk more about, the human operating system, so that if they see something, they say something. They have the ability to stop. Think about human performance techniques. If you're ever doing a change, there has to be a peer check. There has to be a time that you can say, stop, I can't move forward. Security has to be the same way. I can't open this email. I'm not comfortable downloading this file, and knowing that you have the ability to stop and say, I need help. Knowing that security should be there as a friend, as a peer, as a colleague to help you when you stop and assess. So I just quoted this on the other slide, but I wanted to bring it back home here again to you. Organizations need technical and administrative controls, but we also need to educate, trust, and rely on the human elements of security. This was on the previous slide, but I felt that it was important to put in front of you again. We need to educate, trust, and rely on the human elements of security. For example, this is a question that I've asked my colleagues, I've asked leadership, why is it important to evaluate human factors alongside technology when designing and implementing security controls? If you've looked at Gartner research, Forrester research, SANS research, you'll see that if you look at your XY axis, we continue to spend on technology pretty well. It continues to climb. But if you ever look at what we spend on the human, it's kind of flat. We spend a couple $1,000s on their workstation. We spend a couple $100s a month on their training. We may or may not give them proper locks to lock their PC, give them a bag to properly store their information in. We tend to not spend enough on our users because we feel like I need to put technical controls in. I need to stop you with a firewall, with an email gateway, with a SIM tool. I need to put all my data there. That's the only way to secure the organization, if I collect the data and I can stop the data. I don't agree with that. I think you need to have a percentage in your budget that is tied to the human. We need to make sure that we properly budget each and every year of what we're going to spend on our employees from the human OS point of view. We need to train our employees, both formally and informally. You need to have brown bags, lunch and learns. This is a perfect opportunity when you go back to work to take topics that you learned in these presentations and say, boss, I'd like to have my team. Can you buy lunch for us? Hey, director, can I speak at the next all hands meeting? Hey, VP, could you come speak? And here's some talking points that I learned. We need to be able to do that in a way that gives shout outs to our employees. We need to give rewards, as you've heard in other presentations. Raffles, gamification, depending on the legal requirements of where you work, what you're allowed to do. Talk with that, find out what you can do. A simple email, simple newsletter with your name on it, with accolades, goes a long way in the human persona. Back to human-centric design. Humans are educated. I mean that again, we are educated individuals. Some of it's formally, some of it's informal. We have to have the ability to let them ask questions. We've talked about this already in other presentations. We have to have no blame situations. No stick, all carrot. If they have a question, let them ask it. If they ask a question and you have to say yes or no, be able to explain why you're saying yes and know your no. K-N-O-W. Know why you're saying no. This is an excellent time for you to look back at your GRC counterparts, your policies and procedures. These can help you here. Point that to them in your awareness programs. Point them back to their policies. Point them back to their procedures. The biggest thing here is managing human risk. Human-centric design is about training the individual to trust the training they've received. I'll say that again, trust the training they've received. We have to remind the people, how do you do this at home? How do you know when to open your door? How do you know when to give out information over the phone? Did you learn that from your parents? Did you learn that from a security awareness training? Or did you just learn it from the School of Hard Knocks? Several of us here likely have been burned. We've had our identity stolen. We've been robbed. We've had something stolen from us. You may have lost your identity and had to work to get it back. That makes you more skeptical. That makes you more critical. The same goes back to managing and spending resources on a human element. We, as an organization, as a company, have to be willing to give time and effort to the human OS. So let's dive into security operations and what I mean for this presentation. I work for a small startup company. So most of all this on this slide reports directly to me as the security operations manager. I have our SOC, I have our IR, I have vulnerability management, the architecture team, our intel team, and the application security. Some of your organizations will not have all these disciplines. They may be multiple people, they may be one person, they may be 3 people. But what we're going to dive in through the next several slides is each of these disciplines add value to your awareness program. Each of these are allowed to look at a sector that we work in, look in a field that we deal with, and be able to tie that back to your organization in a manner that you have real-time, relevant data that applies to your organization, that applies to the individuals that work in your headquarters, in your remote sites, your satellites, if you're remote. All of these disciplines have a way of enabling the end user, the human element, the human-centric security to be applied. So we'll dive through these disciplines and we'll see how they can apply to your awareness program. So generically, your security operator expertise, they have a wealth of knowledge with coming to identify security weaknesses and vulnerabilities. They have to identify potential threats all day long, every day, 24/7, and then mitigate those risks in a proper manner. You heard me say earlier, make it work. That's an IT mantra. Security is make it work securely. So we're mitigating that risk by accepting it, by migrating it, by transferring it, or by eliminating it. And say, you can't really eliminate a risk. Not really, you're managing and you're controlling. So for an example, your SecOps teams may use advanced threat intel to detect anomalies in your network or unusual user behavior from a UABA, a user behavior analytics tool. They can perform a pen test to identify weaknesses in your infrastructure and provide recommendations to harden and improve it. By leveraging these expertise, Your organization can improve their awareness program by protecting themselves and their employees from a cyber attack. So let's use security operations as a bridge. Security operations teams have to talk with other lines of businesses. They can't just sit in the closet. They can't just sit in the basement. They can't just hide out in the corner. They have to provide their perspective on identifying and migrating risk. So I'm turning it back to security operations now to actually go talk to the awareness manager, to the awareness team. They need to take the data that they are collecting day in and day out and push it to those lines of businesses. They should be comfortable telling finance, you guys are at risk right now. We've seen an uptick on X. Or with marketing, your latest material put us at risk because of Y. And being able to have that in a blameless situation where the CMO, the CFO understands that security is coming as a peer. We'll talk more about that as we dive deeper into this. We have to be peers, not us versus them. Again, SecOps brings operations and security mindsets. They understand the operations of the business because they have to. They have to know where your revenue is generated from. They have to know why you do X. They have to know why you implement Y. There may be a reason that you're running a Windows 7 in your environment. There may be a reason that you have publicly facing applications. There may be reasons that they have to harden, protect, monitor, and alert on. And it's easy for you to just think as a security, I need to stop it. I need to harden it. The best way to be secure is just unplug the Ethernet cable. But how much business are you able to do if I take your internet away from you? Very little in today's society because we all rely on the internet or SaaS, software as a service platforms, to do our jobs. Most of us today are not heavily using a data center anymore. So security has changed. My data is not sitting on-prem. It's hybrid or it's in the cloud. And we have to be able to use the security operations team as a bridge to share that information with the different organizations. Adding value. I've already alluded to some of this, so I'll quickly hit it again. We can help with targeted awareness campaigns. We can give you real world examples of what hit our organization today, what hit it yesterday, what hit it last week. We can help ensure that the employees understand what security is doing and what security is not. We've heard it a couple of times on some of the talks today and others. Oh, you'll stop that for me. You have a tool for that. I can click because you won't deliver anything to me that's not safe. I should be able to click on that email. I should be able to download that attachment because security says that they've scrubbed it, that they've reviewed it, that they have trusted it. Air quotes, trusted it. That's where security awareness and operations can come together to set real life expectations. We stop 99% or 98% of your email. We still have to let 1% in, which could be millions of emails. Of those millions of emails, 1 or 2% are likely still going to be malicious. It's just the nature of how we do business. The synergies, again, we've talked about a few of these. We help identify real world threats and incidents that can be targeted toward your programs. We can collaborate with you to share these examples and case studies. We can come in and have discussions and bolster the effectiveness of your training by giving you real world insights that are tailored to your organization because we know the organization that we work for. We can drive simulations and exercise that are targeted, again, to the finance team because we see the threats attacking in, to the marketing team, to the sales team, to the legal team, to the R&D organization. We have that capabilities to develop practical incident response skill sets that we can take and now put them into decks, into tabletops, into round tables, into presentations at your all hands meetings, at your staff meetings. We can leverage the threat intel, the cyber threat intel and the IR. We are in the underground, we're in the dark web. We have access to threat intel platforms. We get indicators of IOCs, indicators of compromise that we can share with you. Again, we have to select what we share, when we share, but we have the ability. We can say that we've seen an uptick on this type of phishing campaign or this type of social engineering. Everyone on this call likely or has known someone to get the CEO text in their phone. Hey, I'm stuck in a meeting. Can you go get me a gift card? Security operations can let the team know that we've already saw that this isn't the CEO, the CFO. Don't go buy that gift card. Don't upload that gift card. Don't share that gift card. Don't go downloading a PDF because it says that you need to sign this because you're being subpoenaed because you missed your jury duty. This goes back to what is business-centric email communication, what does business-centric web traffic look like in your environment? And that may be different for every organization because every line of business may have a different way of handling communications. Going back to earlier, communication is key. Diving a little more, you get the insights that are vice versa. So we can also take awareness from the awareness team. Awareness team is out there on the front lines talking to the users day in and day out, in good times and in bad times. So when we get intel, those IOCs, we can be already talking with our awareness team. What do you know about this? What are you sharing about this? Has this already made it to your infographic? Is this already part of your awareness training? Is this in your next seminar that you're planning to put on? If not, let's include the evolution of our threat landscape. Let's evolve that. Let's show them how to understand what these look like and put that into your training. TVM, we talked about that. That's your threat and vulnerability. They're running your scans. They're looking at your attack surface. They know what's out there. By understanding these threats, employees can adapt a proactive mindset to them. They can say that I shouldn't go to this website, that I need to uninstall applications that are on my workstation that are not approved, unsanctioned applications. First on their laptops or desktops, second on their mobile devices. Many of you here probably have applications you've downloaded on your workstation or your phone that you have not patched, you have not updated, you are not actively checking. You've left yourself vulnerable to an out-of-date application, and you left yourself vulnerable and your organization potentially vulnerable because they don't know to patch it. Your TVM team can help you with that, as well as your IT team who do asset inventory to tell you you're running a legacy version of PuTTY, a legacy version of OneDrive or OneNote or Evernote, applications that may not be part of your software center or golden image that's pushed to you as when you get your workstation. So they're not patched on a regular cadence, and they rely on you as the user to patch. There's danger in that. So spring cleanup, we're in the fall now, fall cleanup. Go check your applications, go uninstall stuff that you're no longer using, and also check to see if you have a subscription behind it. Save you some money. You may have a monthly subscription you're paying for and you're no longer using. Those are things that you can learn from what the vulnerability team is checking for. So a quick infographic here, or a little diagram on the human risk. All of these apply to us. And the security operations team is looking at each and every one of these day in and day out. We're tracking phishing. We're tracking cloud alerts. Data handling, I haven't talked much about that. Internet browsing, I've alluded to several times. Your video conferencing. Know what's behind you. Know what you're sharing. Have a clean desk policy. Physically protect your space, even if you're at home. Even if it's just your interns, aka my kids. When they come into the room, do they have access to sensitive information? Do you have friends in your house on a regular cadence who have a smartphone who could be taking pictures of your desk and you have sensitive stuff hanging on the wall? Or you're on a Zoom call or a Teams call. What do you have on behind you that could be sensitive, that could be seen? And I've already alluded to the mobile devices. We have to be able to talk about the situational awareness of what we put on our mobile devices, what we do with our mobile devices. Do we leave them laying around when we go to a coffee shop? If you're like me, you probably have. You've left it laying just to go get your refill or when they've called your name or picked up your order. Just understanding the risk associated with each and every one of these. We have to reduce friction and improve user experience. I've already talked to this a few times, but I'll just drop to the bottom of the slide. We have to use statements like, I'm just like you. I'm your peer. You don't want to separate you from them. Use generic terms and don't use generic terms such as end user. Instead say, my peer fell for this. My colleague fell for that. This reduces friction. This builds rapport. This allows you to help understand how to reduce the friction and build a better user experience in your environment that is security mindset, that's building a security culture. A little more humor as we're wrapping up here is, what is a hacker's favorite season? Fishing season. What is a hacker's out of office? Gone fishing. What's a programmer's least favorite Pixar movie? A Bug's Life. And my last one that I use often and like to talk to, I actually had this with my dentist. He asked me, do I floss? I turned around and said, do you use unique passwords and multi-factor where possible? That's more of a realist than it is a joke, but you get the point here is we have to know how to use your security team to work with your awareness team. So I won't go through all these. You'll get the deck. You can go these, but food for thoughts are great. Partner with your organization, your security ops team, your IT, and your management, and go through some of these questions. Think through them. Do you know what risk of running outdated software looks like to your organization? Do you leverage threat intel? Are you aware of insider risk? Have you considered implementing such things? Do you follow good cyber hygiene, as I just alluded to, like updating your passwords, logging out of devices, cleaning up behind you? Are you aware of the potential risk of third-party vendors and suppliers? For those who've been around, we've had supply chain attacks, SolarWinds. Think about those. How would you handle those? How do you manage those risks? And then lastly, as we finish up, security awareness is actually part of your security operations team. So I opened with the elements of security operations through application security. I'll end with security awareness is now part of your operations team. They have eyes and ears. They have the ability to share information, to talk to you, and to be able to enable the user to be human-centric, to have that human OS protected. It gets its patches by those newsletters, by those webinars, by their trainings. So let's wrap it up here as we're coming to time. Security awareness pros are critical to your organization. They're there to mitigate risk. However, these programs face many challenges because they do not understand how to incorporate with your security operations team. Or on the flip side, your security operations team is not partnering with you. So I challenge you to go to your security operations team and share, I want you to be a bridge. I want you to be a value add for me. I want you to help me understand what high risk areas I have in my organization, what real world examples I can share with my peers, and therefore incorporate security operations into your awareness program to improve your overall security posture. So I'll leave you with a quote here, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Technology is inherently neutral. It's up to us to use it in a way that is more responsible, inclusive, sustainable, enabling, and ethical. Thank you for your time.